Strategic opportunities. Before we delve down, let's look at it again from a big picture. And we have to look at, we have a local food system and we have a global food system. This is existing right now, very dominant, very efficient, getting us lots of food very conveniently and very economically. So the idea of looking at building up a vibrant local food system is not about either or here, not about competing and not about replacing the other one, right? So with that thought that this is really, we're trying to supplement the global food system with a local food system for various reasons we were talking about earlier, about what we're paying attention to. And so it is the concept of supplement, not supplant, right? And so I like to think about the idea of combining the two together. It's like a diverse blend of the two. So you've got GLOCAL, and I can't remember who came up with that word, but I love it, because that's what we're looking at here. And so what GLOCAL then allows is for a number of markets that our producer, our processor, people who are trying to make money out of the local food system. So they can go to the local market, they can go to the domestic market, and they can go to the international marketplace. So now we know that diversity is always good in nature. Diversity breeds stability, right? So if you want to say diversity equals more stability. So if you have more options for markets, then you've got a diverse market channels and potentially more stability. And what that means often in this area, what we're seeing is the local market allows people to increase their income, and it allows people to reduce their risk, okay? Just put risk in there. And so there's the overall view of opportunity. Now, the next thing that we probably want to look at, take it down a little bit, is the concept of a food web. Because if you look at the web, that's what you will begin to see where there's a number of opportunities all coming out here. So I prefer not to talk necessarily about a value chain because it's a very linear concept for most people. So there's an idea that if you're starting from production and you're moving across all the way to that where I said waste recovery, right? All the steps inside there that are actually operating in a web sort of environment, because it's wherever people are making, wherever food is being eaten, wherever food is being moved around, wherever food is being grown, that's all part of this web. So you've got production, you've got processing, you've got distribution, you've got food service, you've got retail, and you've got this waste recovery. In each of those areas, we've got opportunities, right? In all of that whole big web in there. So coming out of that context of a food web, then we're really looking at some interesting opportunities. More specific, again, moving down. And I'm just going to throw some acronyms at you. Probably a lot of you know what a CSA is, and I'll explain that. But there's some opportunities in RSA, in ISA, and in GSA. So the SA all stands for supported agriculture, right? CSA, a lot of people have heard about community-supported agriculture. Now, that can mean agriculture has a lot of different aspects underneath it. So a community can support a farm, and this is the one that most people are familiar with, so that a number of people buy shares in the farm, usually ahead of time before the season is grown, and they share a responsibility with the farmer and growing the crops. The other thing that can happen here is that shares can be a community-supported restaurant. So you buy shares in a restaurant that's focusing on buying local food from the local farmer. You can also see some community-supported bakers, community-supported butchers. I mean, the opportunities really are endless using that concept of community supporting through upfront money and share involvement. And that's that idea of social capital and slow money that we talked about previously. Now, the R, and I've mentioned it already, restaurant. Restaurant-supported agriculture. Actually, there's some interesting areas there where certain chefs and their restaurants, they're going into agreements with farmers, a number of different farmers, and a number of different restaurants are coming together so that they're saying, look, if you grow these kinds of crops for us seasonally, we can plan our menus. So there's this idea of a relationship starting there and new opportunities rather than the grower saying, I'm going to grow this and see if I can find a market for it. You think about the market ahead of time. This is this whole concept of market-driven. And if we go back to that, we've talked about consumers, right, as being something we have to pay attention to. What are they interested in? The third one here, I, stands for institutions. And this is this idea that there are cafeterias in institutions. And when we talk about institutions, we're really talking about universities, colleges, where they have cafeterias. We're talking about prisons. We're talking about any municipal, federal, provincial government body that has a cafeteria. All of those areas are all places where food has to be purchased. Hospitals, another big one. Universities, I think I said universities. So those are all places where people are eating food, right? There's an opportunity, and that's what we have to think about. That environment, wherever people are hanging out, staying for a while, they have to eat food because we need energy constantly, right? So institutions, we're starting to see that they're changing their procurement contracts so that they stipulate that there's a percentage of food that has to be supplied locally. And so opportunity there to go down that path. The last one, G for grocery or retail stores. And to a certain degree, we're seeing this happening through independent grocery stores. We're also seeing it happening at the larger chains where they are trying to support the local farmer and the local food processor. One interesting thing, because we're not going into all the examples and all the details, but one of the interesting things about the GSA is rooftop gardening. And people may have heard about this on its own, actually on top of institutions too, for example. But if you put it on top of a grocery store, you've got fresh food. And usually these greenhouses are focused on herbs and vegetables. They are right on the roof of the grocery store. So the grocery store is actually, they're investing in a farm that's on top of their roof. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Another area that spins off of this, and when we're talking about greenhouses and then really urban agriculture is tied into this, the whole idea of new technologies. And in greenhouses, not only do we have soil, still, but we're also looking at aquaponics and we're looking at aeroponics. So we really don't need soil. Plants are being grown in the air and they're spraying them with water. They're being grown in aquaponic situations, so only in water, and these closed loop systems. So some really interesting new opportunities here at some various different scales. And the other thing I'd like to say just around opportunities are that we really, from a community, remember we had those interlocking circles before, and we talked about communities getting more involved in supporting local food system because you've got a mass of individuals that are concerned about what's going into their body. So from that situation, the concept of food councils and food charters and food strategies, we're seeing these developing at various municipalities around the country. And so through that, we're starting to see a vision of what people want and how they envision the types of things in their food system. So if that is happening, then we begin to see that some infrastructure that, just like if you look at communities need roads, communities need bridges for certain reasons, obviously, but food systems need certain infrastructure too. And when you start getting a community envisioning the fact that maybe there's a certain type of food system they want as a blend, as a hybrid or whatever that we've been talking about with GLOCAL. Certain infrastructure and the concepts of food webs, the concepts of commercial kitchen incubators, things like that. Maybe there's a role for some support. And that's really all about what we all need to do